Welcome to the Sustainable Industry Podcast, the transformation resource for net zero leadership. I'm Nick Cox, the net zero champion here at Sustainable Industry, and I'm delighted to be joined by Adam Brennan, the Chief Sustainability Officer at Thai Union Group, and Steve Evans, the Director of Research into Industrial Sustainability at the Institute for Manufacturing. We're looking today at SeaChange 2030, an ambitious new sustainability strategy launched by Thai Union Group recently. We're going to be looking at areas around Scope 3 and how they're working with suppliers to help manage some of those reporting around Scope 3. We're going to be looking at the work they're doing with resource efficiency to turn waste materials into new revenue streams, as well as the work they're doing on eco-restoration. I started by asking Adam how they work with suppliers that might not be hitting the targets required for them to reach their net zero and Scope 3 commitments. Let's jump straight in.
So I think we're lucky and we were able to react on climate change very quickly because of our existing sustainability strategy, and that had really created a platform for us to now launch from. So, to dive into the work that we've been doing in the past, in order to really drive responsible fisheries and to protect those workers on board the vessels, although we don't own a single fishing vessel, we are still able to work with our supply chain in cascading our requirements down and ultimately ensure that they are delivered on. And so one of the key elements that we need there is traceability. And Thai Union have the ability to trace from can to vessel. You can go into a UK supermarket today, you can pick up a can of John West, you're able to scan a QR code, and you're able to understand exactly where that product and where that tuna has come from. And that's really supported us now as we launch our new climate change targets, because it means we've built up those relationships with the suppliers. We understand and we can trace down our supply chain where the product is coming from. And that's ultimately helped us to build up an understanding of the landscape and the different carbon hotspots as we look upstream and downstream of Thai Union. So that, I would advise anyone that's out there that's looking at how do they start this journey, try to understand your supply chain, how your products are flowing, across different actors, because the food supply chain is very complex, and for us, it's also extremely fragmented. And so traceability was really one of those key enablers that supported us in being able to react quite quickly to this new topic, at least for Thai Union on Scope 3.
And with regards to those suppliers that aren't hitting those standards, what are you doing with them to help raise them up?
Yeah, great question, Nick. So I think, we're looking at a number of different things. I just mentioned around cascading requirements and policies down the supply chain. Writing policies is the easy part. Cascading them, providing that you've got all of those relationships is also relatively easy. But really where the effort and focus needs to be is on monitoring. And so Thai Union were one of the first in the industry to introduce what we call a vessel code of conduct, which is really the standards that we expect to be on board these vessels. We then introduced an auditing mechanism that helps assess where those vessels are. And our own vessel code of conduct goes way beyond legal requirements and legal regulations. So when we go out and we audit the vessels, we do identify gaps, and that's okay. We will work with those suppliers through the experts that we've got on the ground to help close those gaps and ensure continuous improvement. And we do that through what we call a vessel improvement plan. We would always take the stance of working with our supply chain wherever possible. That being said, if we really find a supplier is not aligned to Thai Union's vision, we are also not afraid to walk away. But this is, absolutely the last resort, because all that does is it leaves a void that someone else is going to step in and fill. So we really try to work pragmatically with our suppliers, develop trusted relationships over numerous years in moving into the right direction.
I'm going to ask you to expand on that, Adam, because I'll make an observation and you'll say, well, that's just crazy or somewhat accurate. Organizations that seem to have good, effective Scope 3 plans, in my view, have got very excellent communications between their sustainability teams and their purchasing departments. Because if you don't have purchasing aligned, they will beat you up. They will eat you for breakfast as a food company. So are you agreeing with me? And if you are, what does Thai Union do to make sure there's a good conversation going on between sustainability and purchasing?
I completely agree with you, Steve. One of the key ways that we've really gone about that is actually, we've got a sustainability team. There are numerous, team members that sit within my department, but also we've got shared resources. We've actually got our own responsible sourcing team that actually sit in the procurement divisions. They're the ones we work together on a daily basis, making sure that we are fully aligned. But ultimately, it's the responsibility of these people to really cascade amongst the procurement department and to make sure that we're following through on all of these commitments. So that is one way that we've gone about it. We also, make sure that we're aligned at the leadership level and that there are also not conflicting priorities. People aren't being pulled from left to right. We need a centralized position on how we can deliver on our corporate and commercial objectives whilst also delivering on our sustainability objectives as well. So that helps top down. And then at an operational level, we've got experts within the procurement teams that really help to advise on how to move forwards and make sure we're following our guidelines.
I need to ask you a technical question because I'm ignorant. I sort of understand the carbon emissions of beef because everybody talks about it. But I don't quite know where the carbon emissions come from in the tuna supply chain. Is it to do with processing, especially in your suppliers, before you get to touch it? Is it to do with something like processing? Is it to do with the energy, the fuel that's on the boats? Where are the emissions?
So let's take a step back. Scope 1 and 2 is about 10% of our total greenhouse gas footprint. 90% then is in Scope 3. And there are really 4 key drivers of this. So let me just give you an overview of each of those 4. The first obviously comes from tuna, given the type of products that we're sourcing. And if we look at tuna, this is really driven by the fuel that's used on board the vessel. The second big hotspot is within our shrimp supply chain. And shrimp has 2 hotspots. Energy that is used on the shrimp farm. And if you're familiar with shrimp farms, or if you're not familiar, they are large ponds that have aerators that are running 24/7, that are often using diesel or some other type of fossil fuel. So that's a key hotspot that we also need to begin to tackle, as well as the feed. And the feed is really critical here, Steve, because soy is a key component of aquaculture feed. And soy can be connected in with deforestation, depending where in the world it's being sourced from. So under our new commitment as well, we also have a commitment to be completely deforestation and conversion free by 2030 as well. So they're the 2 areas within shrimp. The third is on packaging. Okay, and obviously being a big player in ambient tuna, there's a huge amount of cans. That's our third biggest hotspot, as well as chicken. Why chicken? We're a seafood company, right? Well, actually, we have a new listed company on the Thai Stock Exchange called iTail, and they are, fueling much of our growth as we move forward. And so when we looked at creating this new strategy, we wanted to make sure that it's applicable to all of these different business entities. And so there are also requirements around the responsibly procurement of chicken as we move forwards as well. So those are our 4 main hotspots that we're going to be looking at tackling as we move towards 2030.
So how do you get the fleet to use less fuel?
So there are a number of ways, I think, to start looking at this. For sure, the wild capture is going to be one of the harder areas within our portfolio to begin to tackle. First of all, we need to start actually, getting access to more primary data. Data is a huge burden when you look at creating your climate change targets and beginning to monitor them and beginning to progress on them. So first of all, we're looking at how do we get better access to data. But it's also not just about changing the fuel type. There are also things that we can do to make that vessel more efficient, to make the catch more efficient, to ultimately reduce some of the fuel usage. And then we could also begin to look at things like electrifying ports. So, for example, in Thailand, when the vessel comes to port, they usually leave their engines or their generators running because people can live or they're coming in and out of that vessel. Where if they were able to actually plug in whilst they come back to port, that would also help to substantially reduce, the carbon emissions as well. But no doubt, in the mid to long term, we're ultimately going to have to start exploring alternative lower carbon fuels as well.
You mentioned there, Adam, that the access to data is a challenge, and you've spoken a little bit around some of the technology you guys are employing around the QR codes with the John West tuna. What sort of technology are you employing to help mitigate some of those spots where you can't see the data?
Yeah, so I think, I won't pretend that we have, excellent availability of data today. It's something that we're constantly working on, and I think a point that I really want to emphasize is don't let the data frustration stop actually creating positive impact on the ground. They've got to be coupled. You've got to do both at the same time. It's really easy to just get frustrated and say, I need all of this data from thousands of different sources. That needs to be my priority for the next couple of years. And then I'll actually look at carbon reduction programs. They need to be done at the same time. There is increasingly new technology that's coming into play. Last year, we used a satellite imaging company to help, monitor large numbers of shrimp farms. In Thailand, just to give, put some perspective in this, we have over 10,000 active shrimp farms in Thailand. And Thai Union are the biggest importer of frozen shrimp into the United States. I'm not saying we're using all 10,000, but we use a lot. And so we need a scalable technology that can also help to monitor the performance of these shrimp farms. And through satellite and remote imaging, we were able to identify the productivity of farms. We were able to identify if there was a disease outbreak, and we were even able to estimate the energy consumption of those farms as well. So that's just an example of a pilot that we were running last year, where we hope to kind of use new innovations, new technologies to help answer some of these data challenges.
But building on that question around on innovation and scaling that technology piece, can you give us some insight into some of the work you might be doing with accelerators?
Sure. So, I think, within our 2030 strategy, there are a lot of big, bold ambitions, and I think we are going to be very humble in admitting that we don't have all of the answers on the table today. And so Thai Union have kind of a two-pronged approach to this. We have our own corporate venture fund that is beginning to directly invest in startups, but then we also have a program called Space F, where Thai Union was one of the founding partners, together with the Thai Innovation Agency and with a number of universities here in Thailand, to begin to scour the industry of what's out there in terms of startups. And ultimately, Space F in itself is an accelerator and it's an incubator. It's primarily focused on food tech, but it's also beginning to include elements of sustainability as well. And one of the recent things to come through there was a company called HydroNeo, which is technology that you can apply to a shrimp farm, and using IoT, Internet of Things, it gives us access to better data. We're able to apply on-farm tech to ultimately help to lower their energy and carbon emissions. But we also recognize that although Thai Union is a large tuna and shrimp company, we also need to diversify as well. And honestly, to truly achieve sustainability at a time when we have growing global populations and increasing food security, we believe that we need a diverse range of proteins in order to sustain this growing population and without putting too much pressure on the world's oceans. So Thai Union has also established an alternative protein division, and we have now started to release plant-based seafood. It's already available on the market in Thailand, and it's a growing division within Thai Union. But then on the innovation side, we're also beginning to look at things like cell-based meats or cell-based seafoods. And we've invested in two companies, that are beginning to explore what this space looks like as well. On the aquaculture feed, we're looking at how can we potentially reduce the risk related to soy. And we're beginning to invest in insect meal and algae. So, I think we admit that right now Not all of the solutions and answers are out there, but there is a lot out there, and we really need to provide our support in ensuring that they're successful and scalable.
So some of the innovations that you were talking about there were substitutes. We have feed, we're going to continue to have feed, but there might be a different ingredient. Let's have insect protein rather than soy. But I also happen to know that you've done something really quite fun, I think, exciting and innovative in the direction that I would call resource efficiency. You've caught the fish, let's make the most money out of it, right? Let's go back to what maybe our ancestors did and waste nothing, but in a 21st century way. Can you explain a little bit about what you've been doing?
Sure. So, I mean, I mentioned earlier about, our pet care and our pet food, company. Why is a seafood processor, having such an interest? And that really comes back to actually raw material utilization, right? When we capture tuna fish, a lot of that meat is used for human consumption, but then you are still left with a significant amount of raw material. And so some of that additional raw material can be used in the pet care business. And so that helps to increase the utilization rates. But after that, we are still left with skin, bones, and the head of the fish. So through our Global Innovation Center that's based here in Bangkok, we've got a team of scientists that are constantly looking at new innovations and exploring, can we turn some of these waste products into byproducts, actually into, commercial, products. And so through the research and innovation, we now take the head of the tuna and we extract tuna oil to create tuna oil supplements. We take the bones of the fish to create calcium supplements, and we take the skin of the fish to extract collagen to make collagen supplements. And through all of this work, we now have a very diversified portfolio, but all of that comes from basically trying to utilize one tuna fish to the maximum extent possible.
So I'm going to grab time because I think you've just led me to make one of my favorite statements. I think if we're going to be really sustainable, we have to be really good at looking in our bins. It's one of the new skills. When we go through our industries, we are so in love with our product. We see everything going into the tin, and yet we very quickly dismiss all of the stuff that's discarded. If you look in your bins, there might be treasure in there. And part of that is just making use of waste bits of cloth, steel, plastic, whatever. But what you're describing, I think, is very, very modern, which is you need scientists to look in the bin because there might be a molecule in there that's incredibly valuable. We've worked with companies that are throwing away molecules that are worth $36,000 a kilo. And you think, oh my gosh, that's crazy. Well, it's only crazy if you don't know they're in your bin. Once you know, and this is a phrase that I've been taught, once you see it, you can't unsee it. You have to do something about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I had to grab the opportunity.
You're spot on. I couldn't agree more. And in fact, it's estimated that about 10% of our global greenhouse gas emissions actually come from food waste. So it's really important. We look in the bin, we look everywhere at how we can increase resource efficiency. And so a part of our SeaChange 2030, one of those 11 commitments is actually a commitment towards best-in-class manufacturing. And so under this commitment, we will have our 5 largest processing sites around the world to be completely closed loop. The only things that should be coming out of those batteries are fish and pet care products. That means 0 wastewater, 0 food loss, and 0 waste to landfill. So we couldn't agree more with each other, Steve.
Brilliant. Guys, I'd just like to pause there for a second. Steve, I know we're 5 minutes over the allotted time.
I'm giving a keynote at a conference in 10 minutes. 9 minutes, but I would love to have a look at my notes before then.
Yes, perfect. So should we just do a quick wrap up and then we'll lock off?
Is there anything that you really think we've missed, Adam, that you go, now I've got a cool story to tell and you haven't asked the question that takes us there?
No, Steve, I want to give you the time for you to prep your keynote. So, I'm happy to kind of just,
I do think from what we know about your strategy, we do want to ask at least one question on the eco-restoration pen, because I think that's quite a strong direction that you're going in. It doesn't have to be very full or complete, but if you can fire off that one, Nick, and then at the end of that one, do the close down, I think that'd be a good way to finish.
Perfect. Adam, can you give us some details on the Thai Union Group's eco-restoration plan and how does it fit into the longer-term strategy?
So I think, Nick, when we looked at creating this strategy, it was very much around how do we minimize environmental impact. And so when we look at some of our commitments in wild-caught seafood and farm seafood, that's exactly what it goes out to achieve, to minimize those environmental impacts as much as possible. But we also know that we have a higher duty, a stronger duty to restore and protect. And so with our ecosystem restoration commitment, we will be investing around 250 million baht, which is about $7 million, towards the restoration of ecosystems where we know there will be some impacts. You can never minimize to absolutely zero. So we will be investing in areas like mangroves, in coral reefs, in rainforests, and really hope to, as I said, restore and protect. But with that, what I really want to do as we move forwards towards the end of this conversation is just re-emphasize that this is a very ambitious plan. It is a vision for Thai Union. We hope to kind of show what is possible and also share what doesn't work. It's not all about successes. We need to equally talk about the failings that we've had along the way so that others can learn. And so I really want this to be a call to action to anyone that's connected in to the seafood industry, be it as a consumer, be it as an NGO partner, be it as one of our competitors. It's only if we all work together that we are really able to truly address some of the topics that we're talking about here at scale and with permanence.
I think, Adam, you may have just crashed your email inbox. So, no, it's fabulous. We know that we all have to individually become competent and take care of our own worlds, but none of us have enough agency to change the whole world. And so we know that working with others, people who've maybe gone on the path before you or are on parallel paths, is one of the secrets to speeding up your own path and your own success. It's been fantastic listening to the story. I'm going to rush out and buy tuna.
Brilliant. No, I think that's a perfect place to close on there. Thank you, Adam, and thank you, Steve, for your time. If anyone listening is not following the work of Thai Union Group or Adam or Steve individually, I'd strongly recommend you to do so. It's an incredible achievement and a fantastically ambitious plan that they've set out. So thank you all for listening and I look forward to speaking to you again soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you, Adam.